Well, Sense and Sensibility is about two sisters, Marianne and Eleanor Dashwood, who are deprived of their family fortune because of an entailment in the family will that specifies that the estate and all of the money goes to the eldest male heir. And so it goes to their half-brother, and they are set upon without a fortune in a very tough 18th century marriage market without much to bring to the table. And so the play is about the romantic ups and downs as they have suitors.
And in terms of our characters, I represent the sensibility part of Sense and Sensibility, and Eleanor represents
I represent the sense.
Basically meaning, well, Joe put it great. He said it's a play and a story about the relationship between the head and the heart. So she comes at things with a much more realistic point of view, whereas I go with my feeling, my gut impulses.
Eleanor comes from a place of intimacy can only be acquired over time. I mean, that is her belief, which is fundamental. I mean, Marianne has this whole segment where she talks about, I know Willoughby.
I've known him for 7 days, and I'm better acquainted with him than any creature in the world, except you and Mama.
Right. And Eleanor's response to that is just, you're nuts.
Well, one of the things that makes a great work of art is one that lives for decades, centuries after the writer has passed. And Jane Austen's work today is more popular than it was in her time. In her time, it was read by a fairly select group of people. Today, it's read by millions worldwide. So there's something in the books about relationships, about the human condition, about falling in love, about women in male society that speak to people today. And so they're very, very contemporary in thought. Even though the details are in the 18th century, the events and the human condition is very much with us today. Jane Austen was one of the first writers to really write about what love's really like in the real world. I do a pretty thorough outline of the entire book. Yet what we're trying to do is to take a piece of work that is narrative and make it into dialogue. So it requires a certain amount of invention because there's a lot of scenes that need to be dramatized that are only described or sometimes briefly described. So then I will take that outline and make a smaller outline and have a lot of spontaneity and feel like Jane Austen just wrote about 700 pages of notes for a play that she never got around to writing. And so we're finally turning it into a script. Yeah, well, with Jane Austen, we're looking for three things. We're looking for fidelity in some ways because people are coming to see Jane Austen's Sense and Sensibility, so they have to recognize that the story that they're going to see. We're also looking for structure because the structure of a play is very different from a novel, and so we need to make a story that keeps an audience with us rather intently for 2 hours rather than a leisurely read of a long week. And we also need spontaneity so that when we're writing, we need to be available to our own instincts as writers to shape those scenes in ways that we feel are going to enhance the wit or the specific meaning that are going to evoke the emotions. And so when we have those three things, fidelity, structure, and spontaneity, then it's all working for us. To make the novel into a play, we have an awful lot of scenes that take place in different locations. One of the things that we try to do is to have dialogue tell the entire story. So even though there are parts of the novel, and the majority of the novel is narrated, we don't have an actor standing in a spotlight talking to the audience and advancing the plot that way. When there's letters, and there's many letters, we don't have an actor standing in a spotlight delivering the letter. So it's all dialogue. And we try to make all of those scenes flow into each other as seamlessly as possible so that there's a connection between them and they just segue like pieces of music together. And so we needed a very, very fluid and open design, and working with scenic designer Hugh Landwehr, he's come up with a really ingenious world for our play that involves silent panels that come on, and lots of things that transform the space very easily from one location to another.
Sense and Sensibility is one of our larger prop shows in the last couple of years. There's probably about 50 pieces of furniture in the show. We're still rehearsing, so we don't have the exact number yet. A lot of it is pulled from stock. Some of it's modified. A good example are these chairs. These chairs we're using in the London scene for the party. We have more of these in stock than we probably will ever use. We have about 17 of these chairs. A few of them were broken. So we actually took the front legs from the broken chairs and we made 2 benches that will match. So we stole the legs and then we actually get our wood. This is solid mahogany and this comes from the mill as a big chunk. And then we plane it down and cut it down to make all the rest of the pieces. For these, we built some tables for that scene as well out of mahogany. So it's a pretty big show for us. I think right now there's about 28 chairs alone is the count for the show. So it's going to be a fun one for the crew backstage to try to figure out where everything goes and getting it on and off stage.
The interesting thing about the play is, you know, the book, they're in location after location after location. They're constantly moving. So for the play, you have to get to all those locations, but you have to find a way to do it where you're not, you know, dimming the lights and doing a million transitions all the time. So the way that Joe and Jim have adapted it is that it moves, the scenes pretty much dissolve into one another, and the way that he's blocking it, so that it ends up being very, very fluid, but you're still moving from place to place and meeting all the people you need to meet, and yeah.
Which also makes it very much an ensemble piece,
Yes.
even though obviously there are these main characters that everybody knows and loves, but like our support cast, they are we need them so much in terms of they are actually what's driving the fluidity of how smoothly this play gets done, because they're moving the furniture, they're the ones who are making, and all of it has to be very highly choreographed, and so it's quite a process staging this and making it. It's not like in film where it's like you just go to the next location.
Yeah.
Here we are. But that's also part of what makes theater theater.
Costumes are from the Regency period, which is in the early 1800s, and Holly Payne, our costume designer, and I looked through lots and lots of research and pieces of art and illustrations from the period to come up with a design that really fit the different class distinctions, and also was very flexible, because we go from very formal occasions to relatively informal locations without taking an actor off stage and changing an entire costume. So we had to come up with some fairly creative solutions to accomplish all of that.
So everything is really flowy, really drapey. It's the first period, I think, in women's costume history where they were actually borderline comfortable. They were still corseted, but they were not so snugged in. They weren't strung up so tightly. So menswear is, of course, it's a beautiful period for menswear. The pants are snug and well fitted. The coats have a beautiful shape to them, and especially those nice white collars that really frame the face. Men's hair was gorgeous. It was wind-blown and long on top, and little small sideburns. But really handsome fellows and really beautiful ladies is what the period looks like. Our take on it is a really tight color palette. So it's all shades of kind of serious sorbet is how I think of it. That it's not frothy or silly, but they're gentle, smooth, clean colors. There are 2 leading ladies, Eleanor and Marianne, are the lower end of that class. So they're dressed in linen. Their clothes are a little simpler, but still appropriate for what they're doing. And then the Middletons and Mrs. Ferrers and those characters have more trim, flashier, bigger buttons, that sort of stuff, to really show off their money.
This is a world premiere of this adaptation of Sense and Sensibility, so it has not been seen before. I'm going to toot our horns a little bit and just say I think they've done a really good job casting it. Like I'm not even speaking about us. I'm saying like across the board, it's really well cast. People are really well suited to their roles.
You know, we measure the success of a production by the afterlife that it holds in someone's memory, and these books have a tremendous afterlife in someone's memory after they read them. And they can apply a lot of things in their everyday life to the journeys of the characters that they so identified with when reading the book. We're hoping for a more three-dimensional version of that experience when someone comes to see the plays, and that they have not only their own imagination, but a particular point of view that an actor and a director and a designer bring to it. And so hopefully those images complement the experience that one would have reading the book.